All right. Well, welcome to this web training. This is all about 3 myths and mistakes that could keep you stressed out and stuck in your job when it's time to retire, and some steps to take now instead. I'm Gina Parris. I happen to be a mental coach for professional athletes, and I'm here with my friend Kerry Morris of Assurance Financial Partners. How are you, Kerry?
I'm doing great, yeah. Co-owner of Assurance Financial Partners, and we're here in Franklin, Tennessee today, Gina.
Yes, we're right here where we live and work, and I met you, Kerry, and your partner Donald through some nonprofit work we were doing together. And as you were sharing some of your philosophies, I was really struck with how much I want more people to know about you and your take on financial planning. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your model?
Well, I think it's worth sharing a little bit of history, if that's okay.
Sure.
You know, almost 20 years ago, Don and I both came into the industry on the insurance side of the house. Mm-hmm. And over the first 10 years, we both witnessed a very polarized industry. The Wall Street side only recommended their products and speaking against everything else a lot of times,
right.
You know. And the insurance side only recommending their products and doing the same thing. That left the client in the middle and confused. And Donald and I witnessed this over and over again. So we had a vision to build an independent model that could pull the best of both of those worlds together and use them in a balanced, comprehensive plan that was created in the client's best interest.
So the best interest from insurance and investments, and also I happen to know that you work as a fiduciary, which most people don't realize means you have to also recommend in the client's best interest.
Absolutely. With my CFP, it requires that, but that was our founding vision to begin with. It's just a really confusing world. You know, you've heard us banter and talk a lot about all these misconceptions and myths that people operate on all the time. And so we have a lot of fun clearing those up for folks.
I sure appreciate that you do, because I know putting the client first is rare in this industry. But let's go over what exactly we're going to learn today, because I'm pretty excited about you teaching me about these myths and mistakes, because I'm pretty sure I've made most mistakes out there.
Yeah, sure. Well, all of us have, right? We all had to start somewhere.
Right.
We're going to help you recognize 3 overarching mistakes that keep pre-retirees stressed out and stuck in their jobs when it's getting time to retire.
Okay, awesome.
So the first one is why conventional wisdom may be costing you greatly and how to start planning more strategically.
Boy, I happen to know we'll be talking about why saving for retirement could make you broke and what steps to take now to build in more potential protection.
And number 3, how to avoid the most pervasive block that potentially keeps your account leaking money and underperforming.
Oh, man. Well, let's talk about why this information is especially important right now.
Absolutely. It's critical because without it, you could possibly have to work much longer than planned or seriously risk running out of money in retirement. We've seen it happen, unfortunately. People have come to us to fix those situations. You know, this would mean that you would only have Social Security. It's for years when they do surveys, Gina, running out of money in retirement still comes up as number 1 or 2 all the time.
As fears?
Yeah, fear of running out of money.
Sure.
You know, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Retirees today have the full responsibility for planning and creating their retirement income, and most have only saved in tax-deferred government retirement plans. So here's a little bit of history for you.
Sure.
Prior to the 90s, when a person retired, they usually had Social Security and a pension. Remember those days?
Social Security and a pension.
Together, those 2 things replaced about 80% of their pre-retirement income that they needed. 80%.
Wow.
Guaranteed.
All right.
Didn't matter what their investments did. It didn't matter any of that stuff. Today, that number's dropped to about 25 to 40% of the income needed in retirement is fulfilled only by Social Security.
Wow.
Because pensions have basically disappeared. And as we kind of all know that, it's really probably worse than people think.
Yeah.
So that's a huge gap, and the mistakes we will cover today can help you fill those gaps.
Okay. Well, that's exciting, and I'm definitely paying attention. And I want to acknowledge you guys who are watching and paying attention as well. So let's clarify who this training is for.
Well, I could keep running my mouth on that, but you're really a good example of who this training's for, Gina. So how would you outline
Yeah, myself? Well, I'm approaching 50, hoping to retire. So if you're maybe my age or even retired already, we've known how Paul and I have been great at working hard and making money and socking it away, but I don't feel like we've known really how to maximize that at all.
Yeah, it's funny, the older you get, you start thinking about that more, huh? Right.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm a lot younger than I am, so it's just a little bit hard to think about.
So this really applies to a lot of people. It's a generational thing. I'll tell you who it doesn't apply to, this webinar today. Is
yes.
If you want to triple your money in the next 90 days, day trading options, something like that, this is not the webinar for it.
Okay,
right?
so if we're into get rich quick schemes, this is not the plan. But if you really like to feel educated and know that you're stacking the odds in your favor to really care for your loved ones, this is the right place to be.
Absolutely. And I want to get right to those points, but you and I were talking about earlier about why does it mean so much to Dawn and I to share this information with these folks today.
Right, and take care of people like me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it kind of takes me back about 9 years when I was sitting at a table with a friend and I was going over some of these same concepts that we're going to talk about today. And all of a sudden she just started crying.
Oh, no.
And so she looked at us and she said, well, we just did what they told us to do. And that image has never left me. And what she meant by that is they had just funded, this particular couple had quite a bit of money all in tax-deferred retirement plans, which there's nothing wrong with tax-deferred retirement plans. But we're going to explore that today on how that could hurt you on the back end. So we hope to save you today from some of that same pain that she was feeling.
Okay, I know our viewers can't see the goosebumps that are on my arm, but I feel like I'm being described, even though that I wasn't the one burst into tears, but I feel like we definitely have just done what we've been told. So let's go. Are we ready to talk about our first mistake?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get right into it. Really, we kind of call it having all your eggs in one basket. Do you remember that old saying?
Absolutely.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. When I say that, what comes to your mind normally?
Oh, that's why I'm diversified in my funds.
Yeah, what does diversified mean?
I've got big cap and small cap and foreign and domestic.
That's right. So you thought you had that one covered, didn't you?
Yeah, but again, I'm getting goosebumps because I have a feeling I'm making a mistake.
Well, that's exactly what most workers have done all the years they've saved for retirement. So your brain is probably thinking right now, wait a minute, my pie chart has a lot of colors and sections on it, right? In other words, I'm diversified, like you said.
Yes.
Well, today we're talking about tax diversification, which can sometimes be even more important. Mm-hmm. Remember earlier when I said retirees today have the full responsibility of planning and creating their retirement income, and most have only saved in tax-deferred government retirement plans?
Absolutely.
Well, most people today have saved virtually all of their savings without paying a dime of tax on it because they contributed, their employers contributed to their plan, and it was all saved tax-deferred.
Yes. And that's true. And this is because in our case, we were sure we'd be in a lower tax bracket in this retirement stage.
Yeah, so you would think, well, that's good, right? I deferred the tax.
Yes, we were excited.
Yeah. So just know another word for deferment here, we can use postpone. It doesn't sound quite as good, does it?
No.
Postpone. So let's work through some critical facts and you decide if it was good or not to do that. Which this is not about it being good or bad.
Okay.
But I'll use a story to make my point and then we can kind of unpack it. We just want people to be aware how it really works.
Okay, sure.
So this is called the $10,000 loan story.
Awesome.
All right, so let's say that you come into the office, Gina, you come see Dawn and myself, and you want to borrow $10,000.
Yes, it's the right place to come.
Yeah, you've got the money, but you just don't want to use your own.
Okay.
And because there's an opportunity you want to take advantage of and flip something, and you just want to borrow the money, right?
Yes.
So we tell you, sure, no problem. We go get the checkbook, sign the check, hand it over to you, and wish you luck. Say, Gina, here's the $10,000. You just take right on off and go do it.
Okay.
So you turn around, you start walking towards the door, and then you stop.
Yeah.
You kind of scratch your head. You remember Columbo?
Yep.
How Columbo used to do it? And you say, wait a minute, I've got a question.
Yeah, I do.
And you say what?
What's the interest on this loan?
Yeah, what's the interest rate? That's one of the things you would want to know, right?
Yes.
And we say, hey, don't worry about it. We really don't know right now. We haven't slowed down, taken the time to really know exactly how much of your money we want to take back and charge you in interest. But so, you just go ahead and take that loan and don't worry about it. You move on down.
Great.
Yeah. And what was your other question, Gina?
What are the terms? When do I have to pay it back?
Terms. Okay, so you want to know the interest and the terms. Well, frankly, the answer to that question is the same as the first. We just don't know when we're going to need that money back with interest, and so we can't tell you right now. But listen, you just have fun with this money. Go make some money on it, and we'll talk later about when you need to pay it back.
Okay, great.
Would you take that loan?
Lord, no. Even as nice as you guys are, there's no way.
So I wouldn't either, right? To the extent that people do. And here's the thing. What I just described is every tax-deferred, government-sponsored retirement plan out there.
So the ones that my company matched?
IRAs, 401ks, 457s, 403bs. That's how it works. So let's break it down, right? Because if I was listening to this, I might think, wait a minute, what's he talking about?
Yeah.
So the interest rate on the $10,000 loan is equal to what? The tax bracket you're going to be in when you take that money out.
Right.
So who has control of tax brackets? You?
The government.
The government, right?
Right.
So the government can change that at any time. And they do,
yes.
Right? And just in our lifetimes, we've seen lots of tax changes. We've seen tax go up. We've seen tax go down.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about the term of the $10,000, you said, well, what's the term? When do I have to pay it back?
Yes.
Well, that's equal to all those weird rules that they have about when you can take the money, when you have to take the money out of the account. Because when you take the money out, what happens? You have to pay what?
Tax.
Yeah. So, for example, pre-59.5 rule, unless you meet a few exceptions that are on the books for like disability and serious crazy emergencies, you take that money out of that account prior to 59.5,
right.
Then you have a 10% penalty.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So you get penalized for using your money earlier than they want you to.
Mm-hmm.
I
just get penalized on the whole account or what I took out?
Just what you take out.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. And so that's the 59.5 rule.
Okay.
Then from 59.5 to 70.5, you can do what you want. If you take it out, you just have to report it on your tax return as ordinary income.
Okay.
Okay. And then if you haven't taken it out, because think about it, if you're going to get taxed on it constantly, you might not take out any more than you absolutely have to.
Right.
So when you're 70.5, though, the jig is up. The government says we're going to require you to take out a minimum every year out of your account because, hey, it's time to pay the piper. You got to start paying your taxes. That's called required minimum distributions.
Is it a lot, or is it based on what I used to make? Or?
Well, it's just good question. Let's say that it's a schedule that is designed so that when you reach your natural life expectancy, you've taken all the money out of the account.
Oh, man.
So
okay.
The government wants that tax back. And so if you think back to when you were 25 and 30 years old and you were putting money in and you were deferring the tax on it, do you think you might be in a lower tax bracket when you were younger with kids and making less than when you're older and no kids and you have made a lot more now?
It was almost a zero tax bracket back then and a lot right now.
Yeah, so this fallacy that we're always in a lower tax bracket when we retire kind of doesn't make sense in light of that information, does it?
Right. Even in our 40s, I'm thinking about that. I mean, even then we were lower than now. So to keep my standard of living, I'll be in a higher tax bracket than when I was paying into this. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So people postpone the less expensive taxes and pay the higher taxes later. So let's go on and kind of do the rest of the story for them, though.
Yes,
and
let's.
yourself.
Okay.
So you see the three buckets or the three cylinders on your screen there. The one on the far left describes what we just talked about.
Where all my money is right now, actually. Mine and my husband's.
The money goes in pre-tax. You haven't paid tax on it. Gross tax deferred. And the positive side is people talk about triple compounding and you're getting interest on the money that you would have paid tax on. And all that makes sense,
Okay,
and you can look that up. You can Google triple compounding.
Sure.
But what happens is when they retire, all of a sudden they don't realize until it's really sometimes too late if they don't get any advice like we give, that if they need $80,000 a year, that they really have to take out 96 out of their account because they have to take out enough for taxes too.
Right. So let's just say like my account in here is a couple $1 million, maybe.
Yeah, hypothetically we'll say on the webinar.
Right, maybe $2 million.
Right. Yeah, so if you took all that out at once, it would put you in the highest tax bracket, a little over 40% right now by the time you add it all up. But let's just say that you're only that you just eke it out a little at a time and you're only in a 20% tax bracket.
Okay.
So that's $400,000 out of your $2 million that would be paid in tax, right?
That's a huge amount.
So the first question we ask folks is, well, how much of that money is yours?
I thought it was all ours.
Yeah.
We look at it and we call it ours when we look at the statement.
So really only 1.5 to 1.6 million of that is really yours to spend on.
Okay.
And so how does that affect your income stream that you can take out of it in retirement? It all starts rolling downhill, and we're going to talk about that in the second mistake that we cover.
Okay, so let's look at these buckets.
Yeah, so when we talk about being tax diversified, the simplest way to look at that is these three cylinders that you see in front of you.
Great.
The middle cylinder, the middle bucket, is where you go ahead and pay the tax on some dollars.
Okay.
Remember when you were younger, or even not, you go ahead and pay the tax. Then you have kind of two categories of money inside of that bucket. On the bottom left, it says basis, which is just a fancy word for the money that we've already paid tax on. On the top right, it says taxable growth. And this is where you think about capital gains tax. You might have heard of capital gains.
When we our investment properties, for example.
Exactly. Real estate, all kinds of assets where you've got an investment and you've got some growth. Could be stocks, bonds, mutual funds.
Right. And
then you hear of short-term, long-term capital gains. The point is, in our example here, let's say that half of it's the money that we put in.
Okay.
And then half of it we still have to pay the tax on the growth.
Right.
And so when we take that out, say in retirement, we're still going to have taxation. The biggest frustration, though, that people have with that middle bucket, especially if it's mutual funds or even if they're flipping properties and they're not inside of a 1031 exchange, etc., is it's ongoing taxation.
Yes.
So they pay the tax when they made the money.
Yes.
They stick it in. Almost the first chance they make some money, they have to pay tax again.
Right.
And then when they take it out later, they're probably going to have to pay tax again.
Right.
So this is what we would call a non-qualified or non-IRA account.
Okay.
And it's a lot of times it's a brokerage account, people call it.
Gotcha.
A lot of times. So that's that. And in the third bucket over there, let's look at that and see if that would be something we would want to include if we were thinking about tax diversification. So we kind of pay the piper on the front end.
So do I want things in this middle bucket? Like, do I want to move into all three of these buckets?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because here's the way we view having some diversification tax-wise.
Yes.
Is a little word that people tend to like called control.
Okay.
So fast forward now, picture you're going to design your retirement income stream.
Yes.
And you're going to look and you need X amount of dollars every year. What if you had the ability to pull a third from one bucket, a third from another, and a third from another?
Much better.
Could you control your tax return,
yes,
right?
Much better. Mm-hmm.
Or let's say you need to replace that car.
Right.
And you need $30,000, $35,000, $40,000.
Yes.
you could choose where to take that from.
Yes.
It would, that one incident, or let's say you need to pay for a kid's wedding.
Yes.
Or a kid's college. All of a sudden, there's lots of things that expenditures you have where having control of your tax return, or at least partial control of your tax return, has a huge benefit.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and so the bucket on the right is pretty self-explanatory, right? You pay the tax on the front end, pay off Uncle Sam, we call it, but you have a vehicle to put it in where it's going to grow tax deferred and then be able to pull it out tax-free.
Oh, but if tax deferred means you pay it later, when do you pay it in there?
Well, it's growing tax deferred, but these vehicles that we're talking about in this category have the ability to then pay it out tax free.
Wow.
For example, a Roth IRA might be an example
Okay.
there. A lot of people are familiar with that.
Right.
Specially designed life insurance could possibly be a vehicle there.
Awesome.
And actually, a quick little note for you.
Yes.
You might find this interesting. Senator William Roth, when he was building the legislation for a Roth IRA, he took his information from the very old tax code that goes behind specially designed life insurance. So
yeah, I know someday I'm going to have you do a training just on that vehicle, because I do know that's very interesting.
yeah, some people call it being in your own bank, and it's beyond the scope of today.
Yeah.
But the whole message from us at Assurance Financial Partners is that none of this is good or bad.
Right.
It all has a place generally. It's good. Is it best for you or not, or each individual?
Wow.
You know, stock spawns, all those things have a place. So, again, in retirement, would you rather have all your eggs in one tax basket,
No.
or be able to decide which bucket you were going to pull from any given year?
Which bucket? So I'm feeling
Absolutely.
pretty encouraged by this.
All right. So that's number one. I just wanted to help bring that. We see this awakening happen all the time. People come in the office. Ready to move on to number two?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. So number two has to do with that thought process of we worked our whole life and we've saved and saved and saved. And now we want to transition whether to working for charities, or we want to start pulling an income stream off our assets, and we're going to retire, people call it, right?
Yes.
So we say that the math.
So as it says, like it says right here on the slide, the mistake is thinking your portfolio math stays the same after you quit working.
That's exactly right. So let's talk about first those years before you quit working.
Okay.
So, and we use a visual a lot of times of a mountain, because it's like climbing that mountain. So if we think about it, that could be 10, 15, 20, 30 years, 35 years of somebody's life.
Sure.
I've got one client, he just retired after 42 years.
Sure.
And the employee is usually contributing to the retirement plan.
Absolutely.
The employer is usually contributing to the retirement plan.
Yes, 6% maybe of.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're heads down, we're working hard, raising our
Yes.
families. Are we really paying a whole lot of attention?
No.
Because we have a time on our side.
Yes.
So what we don't realize is that the lows are never as low as the market really is. The lows are always higher because we're adding money to it constantly.
Right.
The highs are actually higher because we're adding money to it, and we don't pay that close of attention. So one interesting thing about this, we talked about the math, right? That thinking the portfolio math stays the same after you stop working. Let's look at this chart right here. And let's say that you're on on the left and your sister's on the right.
Yes,
and
my sister, Joey.
Yeah. And let's say you guys inherited $1 million, top left-hand corner of both of y'all's accounts.
Sure.
And what's interesting here is that the middle column is 30 years worth of stock market returns. This is actually the S&P 500. You see that negative 38 on the bottom?
Right.
That's 2008.
Oh, man.
Okay? Just so everybody kind of remembers 2008.
I remember.
So big negative right there. Now, the difference between you and Joey, though, she had a completely opposite sequence of returns.
Right.
If you look at her column, we flip the returns on their head and see the negative 38 at the very top.
Yeah.
So,
No way.
You see
They're the same.
You see that? So at the bottom right, they both have the same exact number.
I am in shock. I thought that wouldn't work that way because of how the compounding works. If they were low in the beginning.
You had a lot of negative years in your later third.
Yes.
She had a lot of negative years in her earlier third. And the thing is in the accumulation years when people are working, the sequence of the order, how the market performs, it doesn't matter. It's going to be the same number regardless at the end.
Okay.
And so as we approach retirement, though, it's kind of like this visual that you see right here where you're looking out over that Gulf and you're looking down that bridge and you really can't see the other side of it.
It's pretty, but I can't see
it.
Right.
And so what we want to do, though, is we want to kind of zoom up and have a view of the whole retirement landscape. And that's what guys like me do.
Sure.
And so as we transition over into coming down the mountain, so back to the mountain analogy.
Okay.
And by the way, do you know more people die coming down Mount Everest than going up?
Yes,
you know
I do know that.
Yeah, it's much more dangerous.
Yes.
Now, in our conversation here, now let's start taking an income stream out of you and Joey's accounts.
Okay.
We got the same two accounts, same exact series of returns.
Right.
Now, here's we're gonna add a column though, and before we reveal it, before I show it to you, I'll just say you're going to see another column, and we're going to start pulling $60,000 a year out of each account, retirement income, and we're going to grow that each year by 3% for inflation.
Okay.
And let's see what happens.
Okay. Here we go. Oh my gosh, Joey, I'm so sorry you're broke. I've got to be the one on the left.
So, in the business, we call this sequence of return risk, so that when you're pulling money out of a variable account, it behaves completely different than when you're not pulling money out. And literally one can sustain and one can literally run out. So that's part of what we do is we have to mitigate sequence of return risk.
So, okay, just to understand, this is if we redid those previous years or going forward with what we had before?
What you're seeing in front of you is retirement. It's 30 years of retirement.
Oh my gosh.
If we repeated this, the same situation and let's say somebody saved $1 million.
Right.
And then they start taking an income stream. So
that's way too unpredictable.
So one way you could change that is just to take a lower percentage out, right? Instead of 60,000, So that's called sustainable withdrawal rate.
Okay.
So if you're going to do income planning, you have to, and let me qualify that. If you're going to do income planning successfully, and make sure we don't run out of money, these are things we have to consider.
Absolutely.
The most pervasive myth and misconception I see out there, Gina, is what I call the average return fallacy. And that's simply this. It's put out there constantly, the stock market averages 8%. The stock market averages 10%. All these averages, right?
Right.
So, Joe Consumer says, hey, if it's averaging 8%, then I can pull out 6%.
And it'll keep growing.
And it'll keep growing. Like this is pulling out 6% right here.
Okay.
And so the thing is that they're basing their income plan on
numbers,
averages that are working against them and numbers that are working against them. And so, that's part of what we do in our process is help people understand how to separate the assets into growth producing assets and income producing assets. That's the first way to start mitigating sequence of return risk. So don't mean to get too technical or anything,
right?
But this is not that technical when you scale it all down to the fact that literally the mathematics changes.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is the ways that I've thought about our future based on the past performance of our portfolio is very much flawed.
Yeah. When it comes to
the certainty and the math. The math is just
changing it over to an income stream. Income planning is a genre of our work in and of itself.
Okay.
And
and that's the important part. That's the whole point of retirement. It's that we're living on the portfolio rather than our
bingo
income.
And don't forget that since 1980, the American worker has had all the responsibility on themselves.
So we can't just look at what's working for my parents.
Things
in
have,
their 80s because
Exactly.
it's totally different.
30 years ago, interest rates were at all-time highs.
Yes.
Now they're at 60-year lows.
Yes.
It, you know, it's a completely different world. You're right.
Okay.
So, which actually brings up a quick point that I usually like to talk about, that if you don't take macroeconomic factors that are going on
Yes.
in history in the
Yes.
time frame you're retiring, and if you don't apply that to sound planning principles, you still have a lot of room for error there.
Okay.
So we have to think about that.
Awesome.
And that's all that's enough to make somebody scared, isn't it, Gina?
Yes.
What are we going to talk about next?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground here in those points about being diversified when you thought you were diversified, but you're in really tax chaos. And we've talked about thinking the math is going to stay the same when really it doesn't. And now we're going to cover the most pervasive, maybe, myth and mistake that keeps us underperforming.
Absolutely.
And here's the slide.
It's a 4-letter word, Gina.
Fear. This is my specialty with my athletes and all my clients.
That's right.
Overcoming fear and anxiety.
Fear, man.
And I on this money game, I'm feeling it.
Fear is paralyzing. It really is. And unfortunately, I work in an industry, like I said earlier, that's very confusing, and people feel vulnerable.
Yes.
And so I came across a study not that long ago. It was in an article in Financial Advisor magazine from October 29th of 2015.
That describes why we want to be this ostrich with our head in the sand.
Yeah, but we got to talk about how to get the head out of the sand, don't
Okay, let's hear the report.
So the title of the article is "People Are Afraid of Financial Advisors," study says. I mean, that got my attention,
Yes.
I don't want anybody afraid of me.
I know. It's true.
Except for the Goliaths of the world. Right?
Yeah.
And so what it talks about in the study is, it says overall 71% of the 2,000 people surveyed said some aspect of dealing with a financial advisor makes them afraid.
Absolutely.
So we're going to hit 4 of these today, you and I. And number 1, it says 49% say it is a fear of having to pay the advisor a lot of money.
It's true. That's a fear. I've had that fear.
Yeah, I get it. There's a lot of talk, a lot of awareness about fees and things like that.
Right.
Again, it's
and
probably,
compounded fees. Like, oh my God, that's making it worse.
Yeah, we actually do a vignette of education on people walk in all the time thinking they know how much they're currently paying, but they really don't.
Right.
So I could talk about that all day. But let's just say that we get it. It's definitely an important subject, an important topic. We always have to be cost conscious of anything we do.
Yes.
And so that's why we built our firm the way we did. That's one reason, is that we didn't want to even be positioned to receive commissions on the buys and sells of securities. We work off of a completely advisory fee-based model.
Okay.
On the managed money side of things.
Right.
And so that way, if our clients' accounts goes up, we make more money, they make more money. If their accounts go down, we make less money, and they're lower too. Wow. So we feel like our interests are in line with theirs. So
you're not just charging, you're not making all your profit off of selling me the most expensive securities, or...
Absolutely. Right. It's actually irrelevant which securities we hold in
Perfect.
the account
Okay.
to cost.
Okay.
It's straight fee. And so it brings a lot of value, not to mention the comprehensive nature of what we do.
Versus...
Yeah.
In fact, tell our viewers about how you operate in your culture, your team here.
Yeah, any client relationship, we see it foundationally, we have to look in all areas, from legal documents to risk management to investments to long-term savings to income planning and tax planning. We wrap it all in tax planning because everything has mentioned in the tax code. And so, we have visuals for that. And so, we've built the firm to bring a lot of value, but that doesn't stop people from being afraid when they don't know us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's the system and everything that they're part of.
Yeah, thinking we're going to pay too much. So now I'm feeling better about that. We're not going to pay unnecessary fees and higher fees and things here. What's another fear in this article?
One last thing, though, is I would just encourage folks to take the time and be patient to really let an advisor explain really how fees work.
That's true.
There's a
Good
lot of
point.
education that the right advisor is happy to give.
Okay, good point.
So number 2 fear says that 47% are hesitant to trust a financial advisor with their personal financial information.
Yes, for 2 reasons.
Yeah, like right off the top of my head, you think data security.
That's my first thought.
Yeah, we handle a lot of personal information, so data security has to be paramount.
Yes.
Obviously, we take measures to make sure that's taken care
But
of.
I have a reason bigger than that. I can over the years.
You probably feel like you're going to be judged, right?
Yes. I mean, it's just so very personal.
So one lady compared it to getting a massage, right? And think
Yes,
about-
that's exactly what I thought of. In fact, as I got a massage yesterday.
They're
like,
going to see my love handles
Yes.
and all these things, right?
I would be naked here, and this person might judge.
Yeah. And the thing is that for us, it's data. It's information, it's fact pattern. That's the quantitative side of the gathering. The qualitative side is people's goals and their dreams and what's going on in their heart and their family dynamics and with their children. And it's just across the board. We tend to call that their why when we're listening for their why. And then we get to the how, and then we get to the what. Most of the world, we think, tends to start with the what.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of reverse engineering goes on in our work where we're really listening to those things. And so people's personal financial information should be very sacred in a way.
Yeah.
Like, that is their personal financial information. It's a very personal thing.
Yeah,
And
we
so,
exchanged our life for this
yeah,
money.
yeah, absolutely. But it's what we do every day.
Exactly.
So for us as the practitioner, we're just want to get in there and find the positives,
Yes.
and so obviously we have to keep it all confidential, and we happy to do that, and we do, but we can't do our work. It'd be kind of like not wanting to take your car into the mechanic, but wanting your mechanic to tell you what's wrong with it.
Yeah, it doesn't bother us with our cars. So that's a good analogy.
It's just like that. So let's move on to number 3. Another 38% say they fear getting bad news about their finances if they talk to an advisor. So it's the old bad news thing.
It's like not going to the same reason that those are the same people that don't go to the doctor when they're feeling horrible.
Exactly. So the last one was a massage. This one's like being naked in front of the doctor, right? They're running all kind of tests and what's going to be wrong,
Yes.
And so my response to this is I don't get up every day to come to work and give people bad news.
That's right.
I get up every day to come and give people hope.
Yeah.
And to say, hey, how can we take your 5 loaves and 2 fishes and how can we feed you for the rest of your lifetime off of it? And so that's really, people quickly get over that fear if they ever give it a chance and kind of come in and have a conversation and they realize that, hey, they've done really well in a lot of areas. And we look at that like legacy.
Right.
I get almost emotional, or I do get emotional sometimes when I think about the years of work that some of our clients have put in to build what they are then entrusting us to help guide them and coach them on.
Absolutely.
And so it's hugely important that that's respected. And so
Put at ease.
I can tell you the pain of not doing some things and the pain of having to have shortfalls and change lifestyle and not meet your goals in retirement is much worse than the pain of just overcoming the fear to go in and have some conversations.
Absolutely.
And explore that.
In sports, we talk about that being the fear of, or the pain of regret will always be more painful than the pain of discipline.
That's exactly right.
Good.
So fear number 4 says 41% say they feel a financial advisor would not be able to help them with their finances.
Those cynics. A financial planner can't help me.
Yeah. So, really, there's no way that the average consumer can be aware of the myriad of tools and strategies that it's taken us years to learn of mentoring and training and working, and the potential of those tools to really mitigate tax possibly, maximize cash flows potentially, and address your risk tolerance, where that's congruent, where that's lined up. We see people all the time come in and they say they want this a lower risk level, and their risk level is double of what they want it to be.
You mean they want to be conservative, but their money is in very aggressive.
Exactly. Like let's say
Sure.
if you assigned a score to it from 0 to 99,
Right.
and they say they want to be a 55,
Mm-hmm.
well, they'll come in as an 85 or 90.
Because they just don't know. So when somebody's afraid, basically they're saying, well, a planner can't help me. Basically it's because we just don't know what we don't know. So that's why we think that often.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's a lot of unknown. Not
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, there's always challenges in scenarios, but that's half the fun of it, is because where there's challenges, there's always opportunities.
Yes.
And so our job is to come alongside. It's kind of like you're the owner of a professional baseball team.
Right.
You work in baseball a lot.
Yeah.
And you're going to hire a great coach, right?
Yes.
And recruiting staff and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're basically kind of the coach that the team owner hires.
Yes. That's a good
to go win the
analogy.
championship. And so yeah, it's creative work, it's fun work.
I love that. And I know that's why you guys like to be Assurance financial partners, the way you really partner with your clients and have that team approach with your other professionals around, your tax folks and your insurance, and man.
Yeah. So let's not
Ooh.
let fear stop us from at least having some conversations and doing some exploration,
Yes, absolutely. Well, that is wonderful. I feel like we are here at decision time. If we've heard those things, maybe you're out there listening and you're like me, you're thinking, I've done that. I've thought I was diversified. I've honestly have looked at our account, looked forward in terms of the math staying the same. And you've been so generous to offer to everyone viewing today the chance to come in and do what we're calling a 3-step strategy session. So right now, those of you watching, I'd like you to join me in processing this offer. Tell us what we're going to get. Those of us who, you're like me, you want to be educated, you want to make sure that your loved ones are taken care of, you want to be smart, and just have this conversation. Tell us what that means in this 3-step strategy session.
Yeah, it's a chance to just at least do a little bit of forensic, a little bit of look at 3 areas, and maybe we can find some money falling through the cracks. We can find some efficiencies. We can maybe have those conversations about the future in the areas of taxes, cash flow, or income, you might call it, and risk tolerance, as we mentioned before. So a 3-step strategy session done correctly
Yes.
means that someone would go ahead and submit our confidential questionnaire, so we have some data,
Okay.
a tax return, and some investment statements.
Okay.
With that, we can very efficiently, because of our processes, we can do those analysis and then really deliver some solid content and some solid information back to them in these areas. Now, Gina, not everybody likes to jump right to that point, and that's understandable.
Sure.
So sometimes we never want there to be a barrier to somebody just at least coming in and having a conversation.
Okay.
And so sometimes people feel more comfortable just doing that first,
Right.
and then moving forward with the full 3-step strategy session.
Oh, okay. So you're inviting whichever comfort level we're at, you're inviting us to get on the calendar?
Absolutely. I mean, we feel like we've built the firm in such a way somebody can feel comfortable, and it happens all the time where
Right.
they want to send us their stuff, as everybody calls
Yeah.
it. Let me send you my stuff, and then tell me what you think. And that happens a lot. But
Okay.
there's also those other optional ways too.
What we want to do then to get this strategy session where we get to discover if our current plan is maximized tax-wise, cash flow-wise, risk tolerance-wise.
Just go to
meetwithafp.com. I see it on the slide here. So I'm going to go to meetwithafp.com, as you can see there. And then we'll be taken to your online calendar. We'll see the slots that you have. I know most of them are on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the chance to come in. And we'll get an email.
Absolutely. Our team will completely take care of facilitating getting together, reminders, and the whole 9 yards.
And what to bring, so we can decide. Do we need to let you know before we get there what all we're bringing, or?
Well, we'll know when we set the appointment. If we would appreciate knowing,
if I did questionnaire in my
right,
email.
yeah. We usually send it out, and like I said, though, sometimes people just want to meet you first, and they just have that comfort level. It varies across the board, and then the person right next to them understands that if they really want...
That'd be me. I'm not wasting any time, man.
Yeah, I mean, if they want us to really speak to any
Yeah.
core issues when they first come in, we have to have that data first, because we are a fiduciary, and I'm responsible for anything I say like that. So I really can't comment unless I have data.
Gotcha. Awesome. So whatever, if you're intrigued by what you've heard and you're saying, all right, I want to come on in, then you can do the fast track with all your data. You can do the come in and get acquainted, and where it will take you 2 meetings to provide all your data. But that's beautiful, Kerry. And I invite all of our listeners as well, and you guys watching, do that. Go to meetwithafp.com and get on the calendar, because obviously there's only so many slots on each Tuesday and Thursday, and anything can happen in the market. So why waste time leaking money or taking any chances?
Yeah, you just never know. I mean, I just want to say that it seems like it doesn't matter where we come into, where we start coaching a team at.
Yes.
We can still make an impact on that season of their life,
Yeah, so it's not too late.
Mm-mm.
It's not too late. It's not too early. And if you're here, I believe you're here on purpose. Just like I felt when I first met you guys, like that was a divine appointment at that charity event. And I invite you guys to do that. Come on in this office in Franklin. It's such a cheerful place, such a prosperous feeling here, and you will be so glad to come in and get some insight on your future plan to make your dreams come true. Awesome. Well, any last words with that, Kerry?
No, just that we kind of live by one of our core values that says every deed is a seed and every day is a harvest. And so that's how we look at it. We're planting the seeds today for future harvest, and we're reaping the harvest today of the seeds in the past, but for God's grace on some of those, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's a relationship where if we can help, we love to help.
Right.
It's really, really awesome.
Oh, it is awesome. So I believe it will maximize your harvest. So there's that link on your screen again. You can see it, meetwithafp.com. And we are so glad that you joined us for this web training. Now you know the 3 biggest, most pervasive myths and mistakes that might keep you stressed out and stuck in your job when you should be able to retire. And I'm actually feeling really hopeful about being able to learn from you guys further, and especially help my husband retire. And